Coming up on the Making Waves VO podcast.
And my dad was rather a, what do I want to say? He was rather a rebel, in the church, and he actually eventually was thrown out of his denomination. But I grew up, so it's funny. I can kind of walk this line of going, I grew up a Baptist preacher's kid, and everybody gets a particular image of what that is, and then I want to go, and it's not really what you think,
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves. Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves. Making waves.
This is the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell.
Welcome to the Making Waves VO podcast presented by Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO.
And Bobby, we have got a great guest joining us today. This is Bess.
How to speak Porsche. Doppelkupplung. Pronounced Doppelkupplung. The German word for double clutch.
This is Bess.
Some animals can use pictures like these to talk, but what does that really say about animal intelligence? Now, Anderson Cooper investigates. Amazing animals, smarter than you think. CNN Monday night, 10 Eastern.
And this is Bess.
Dr. James Sulikowski risks life and limb to get an ultrasound on a 12-foot tiger shark.
I need to get a little closer. Watch my back.
But the dive quickly descends into chaos.
Yes, it does. She's worked as a voice actor for nearly 40 years and has been heard on TV and radio commercials too numerous to count. Promos for every major network, and over the last decade plus, she has gone all in on video game work. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Bess. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
That's pretty impressive.
I'm always surprised. Like, I think, who's that person?
Yeah, a career like yours, though, deserves an intro like that. You have been crushing it for decades. And P.S., you don't look a day over 25.
Right.
And so we are just honored to have you on the Making Waves VO podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Yeah, if it's not obvious, Bobby and I are big fans. I was talking to Bobby on and on about the Shark Week documentary, and I love nature, I love sharks, I love, narration, and it was just a lovely piece you did. I recorded it and couldn't wait to watch it, and just really, I ate it up, no pun intended. But let's get into this, Kay.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for over 40 years. That is staggering. Did you come from your music career, or was it always acting? I know you sing as well.
Oh my goodness. I think I'm just at 40 years, I want to say. I think I kind of began this in 84. That's so long ago. I feel like such a different person than I was then. But I had been a jingle singer in my hometown of Goleta, Santa Barbara, California. But I had always done theater, and so I sort of came from an acting background, but I loved music as well. And I actually had my initial sort of plans in my life were to become a recording artist. That was sort of where my dreams began. I was a singer from a very young age, and then I had a little taste of the music business and had a demo deal, they used to call them, when I was 19 with CBS Records, and for various and sundry reasons that all fell through, and it was kind of a disaster. And so from there I went to college. I went to USC to study acting, and on the third day of my junior year, I dropped out of college. And this is such an abbreviated roadmap, but in sort of my like, oh my God, what have I done and what am I doing now? And, the panic of being 22 and not knowing what the snap I'm doing with my life, I managed to come across a workshop for voiceover, which when I had been singing jingles in Santa Barbara, every once in a while, the ad guys would say, can you just read that little part in between the verses. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, So I had some sense of what voiceover was from that experience. And so I thought, well, I could try that. I wouldn't be I'm comfortable behind a microphone, and I really hated being in front of a camera. And so I thought, well, I'll take that class. And nobody taught voiceover back in those days.
Right.
But that's how it began, right? So I was always doing theater and plays, and I was singing, and I sang background vocals for some bands where, in Santa Barbara, and all that kind of stuff. And I sang for some songwriters there as well. And so I was always kind of doing all of it. And then after I dropped out of college initially, that's when it really began. So I was 22, 23, I think. And it just went from there. And talk about, sort of things being meant to be. Everything I came up against as an on-camera actor was a closed door, just a locked door, being moved around and pushed around and sidetracked and all these things. And voiceover was like just this series of open doors, that just, I didn't even have to touch them, and they kind of opened for me. And it was like, okay, I guess this is where I'm supposed to be. And, 40 years later, here I am, so kind of wild, but there you go.
Well, you've worked in so many different genres, as Kevin just demonstrated. I mean, commercial and promo and affiliate, gaming, animation, you've done it all. Is there one that has given you the most satisfaction, or is there one you still want to conquer?
I don't have anything that I particularly want to conquer. There are things that I'd like to do more of, and I think this is the beauty of voiceover. And if you can really cultivate and develop various genres, you will never be bored. There are times when I'm in kind of a commercial space where I am doing lots of commercials. And then I think to myself, my kingdom for a script I can really sink my teeth into, right? And, wish I had a video game session coming up, And then there are times when I'll be working on a video game and I'll think, oh my God, I can't bear another, another session like this. And and I wish I had just a short commercial script, or wouldn't it be great to just do a promo, And so, and that's how my career's been. So I move back and forth, and it seems like one area has some energy to it for a while, and then that energy fades, and another area will pick up steam at the same time. So I think that's what's kept me just it's allowed me to keep working, is to develop a lot of different genres. I definitely have a lot more to learn about animation, and that's probably the one area where I think, I'm definitely a student of it, still. I'm a student of all of it because styles change, and you have to learn and adapt and grow and things like that. But animation is one that where I really felt like I had to work at that. I had to work hard at that, and with my own getting over my own fears, and the restrictions that I placed on myself in understanding what animation was and what I was capable of, So I have a lot of work to do in that area, I think, still.
Don't go anywhere. The Making Waves VO podcast returns in a moment.
Hola, soy Jenny Álvarez y estás escuchando el Making Waves VO podcast con Kevin y Bobby.
Bobby, so we've been talking about a lot on podcasts lately about the quality of our audio and what can be a death knell for a voice actor if they have audio quality that is not up to snuff, up to par, as good as everybody else. Oh my gosh, what do we do, Bobby, if we're not sure about our audio quality?
Well, you go to the experts, of course. And I'm talking about the folks at fullcompass.com. Not only do they know the equipment, but they know the business, and they've been doing this for decades and decades. So when you go on social media and say, okay, who has this microphone, or what do you think? Why not just call fullcompass.com and say, tell me about this microphone, or how can I improve my sound if it's doing this? I'm telling you, they know their stuff.
They do know their stuff. Like, let's say you're in your booth and you're getting some echoes or a little bit too much reflection. Talk to the folks at Full Compass, because they can say, hey, let's do a little test. Let's hear how our things are sounding. And they may go, oh, you need some new bass traps, or oh, you need some foam, or hey, maybe you'd be interested in this new microphone. P.S., Bobby,
Yeah?
at Full Compass right now, they are having a fall clearance sale.
There you go.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Up to 88% off. Up to 88% off right now at Full Compass. And now I'm not talking about just, rando stuff. I'm talking about they've got Neumann microphones on sale. They've got Focusrite interfaces on sale. They've got Shure interfaces on sale. Everything a voice actor needs, chances are you're going to find it on sale right now at Full Compass.
Fullcompass.com. They also do packages that they put together where you can get even more savings. So go check them out. Fullcompass.com.
Click on the banner that says Fall Clearance Sale, and then you can sort the pages. You can display it however you want to, but make sure you check it out. Make sure your sound is up to snuff, up to par, up to being as good as everybody else. Like Bobby said, go to Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO. Now back to the podcast.
I love that you're talking about training and that you still work hard at your craft and you're still learning. And I wanted to talk about the Meisner technique. I read, on your website how you just kind of, I guess, a decade or so ago decided to go all in on video game work, and you thought, well, I need to get proper training. So if you would go into what that process was like for you and the benefits of the Meisner technique in our VO world.
Sure. Who knew, that a stage and film technique could be beneficial to voice acting. But let's see. I had sort of hit this roadblock in my career where things were just not moving. I was not working like I was. And I really hit this low point of like, well, either you need to find a different way to make a living, or you need to invest yourself further into this career that you've known for, 25 plus years. And so I kind of sat with that for 3 or 4 days, and I thought, yeah, you have a lot of experience, and don't give up on it, seek to get better and, explore other avenues. So I asked my agents if they would be willing to send me animation and video game work, and they were like, yeah, happy to. And so they started sending me stuff, and I say this, I was really kind of afraid of animation work. I was afraid to make a fool of myself, and it was kind of weird to be a 25-year veteran, thinking about going to classes where all of my peers, were teaching those classes, people I'd been in the business with for so long, and kind of walking in as a newbie to that particular genre, and I kind of had to swallow my professional pride a little bit, which is just ego, which is ridiculous ego, so I remember going into an animation workshop with Mary Lynn Wisner, and she had a casting director there, and I walked in and she goes, "What are you doing here?"
Exactly.
And I said, I want to learn how to do animation. And that was it. And she was like, "Great." Like there was no stigma, that was just all in my head, So anyway, so I started started auditioning, and I thought my auditions were pretty good, and I felt like they were getting better, and then I did this one audition that had a singing role in it, and I thought, oh, this is great. Like, I can do that. And I felt so good about this audition. Like, I'd been auditioning for a few months, and I thought, wow, I think I might have a shot, at this. And I, through various means, I ended up asking for feedback on my audition, and through my agent and another person who was actually on that show. And so I got feedback, and I wasn't cast, and the casting director just said, her audition was meh.
Oh, you don't want to hear that word, right?
Punch to the gut.
And so I was like, wow, and she said, and I got this again, third party. She goes, it was a fine audition. It just wasn't connected. I didn't believe her. I didn't believe she was actually talking to someone. And even though these are animated characters, they're still relationships, and they still have to be believable and real. They may be more animated, if you will, but I still have to believe you, right? So I really took that. I really took that constructive criticism to heart. And I thought, okay, Bess, you have been an actor. You went to school, you studied acting. And after all this time, you have forgotten, that what you do is relational. That even if I'm an announcer talking to someone, I'm talking to someone. There's a relationship there, and you have let go all of those acting habits that you cultivated at one time. And I thought, I have to go back to acting school. That's what I thought. And so I auditioned for the Ruskin Theater in Santa Monica, California, which was it still is, a really reputable theater in town, and they are known for their fantastic Meisner program. And so I went in, I auditioned, I was accepted, and 3 months into that program, and it's a 2-year program, so 3 months in, I started booking video games.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, oh, right. Like, and really all it was, I think, was this reawakening of this, truth that I have known, and that is that nobody speaks in a vacuum. Everything is relational. Who are you talking to? Why? What do you want? What's the problem that they're presenting to you? How are you solving it? All of those questions that we should all, as voice actors, be asking ourselves every single time that we read a piece of copy, whether it's announcer copy or video game copy or animation copy or whatever it is. Otherwise, we're just listening to the beautiful sounds of our own voices. And that's what makes a casting director go, meh, it's okay, And so I think the biggest thing in Meisner technique that applies to voiceover, aside from just generally, an acting sensibility that says we're in relationship, is the use of our imagination, because as voice actors, we are actually alone in the booth 95% of the time. So who am I talking to? That has to be in my head. I have to be able to imagine that relationship. I have to be able to cultivate it such that even I believe who I'm talking to, So Meisner is really all about the cultivation of your imagination. It's forward-looking. It's daydreaming. It's fantasizing, it's worrying, it's all the things that human beings do when we peer into the future and wonder what's there, if that makes sense, right? We get in our car and we drive and we go, I wonder what how my boss is feeling about me today after learning that I blah, blah, blah. And then you imagine the scenario between you and your boss, and it could go either way. Right. But that's the use of your imagination. You're putting the scenario out and making it a possibility. Right. So imagination, that's the ticket, I think, in voiceover, that a tool in Meisner that that's really, really useful for voiceover. So.
Hi, I'm Lacey Deline, voice artist and producer, and you're watching Disney Channel. No, huh? Podcast. Making Waves. Oh, Kevin and Bobby's thing! Whoops.
Well, you mentioned all these different areas you're working in, and by the way, kudos, that's awesome. But I'm sure our listeners would probably wonder, do you get most of your opportunities through your agent, or do you also work with production houses when you're at your level in the game? How are you getting the work?
I get virtually all of my opportunities from my agent.
That's awesome.
And that is, I have to say, I think it's an archaic model. And I think it's I think agents will always play a really important role, in voice actors' careers, But I think it becomes it's really specific to the genre these days. I think if you want to work in animation, you really need to be in Los Angeles and you need to be represented. If you want to work for Disney and Nickelodeon and and DreamWorks and those relationships, those animation relationships really come through agents, right? The same I would say with most major video games, although I think that there's a shift in that as well because there are so many indie games out there, and independent production companies are gonna go to alternative means to cast sometimes because of budget and all those kinds of things. If you want a career in promo, I would say it doesn't matter where you live in a sense, but it matters the relationships that you have with agents who are the purveyors of those auditions and have those relationships. So I can do promo because I'm with Atlas, and I'm not saying Atlas is the only one. I'm just saying that they are an LA, New York agency, and they have relationships with ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and so it doesn't matter where I live because promo is so immediate and they want you to have a home studio. So that's all well and good. But I think it's the agent relationship again. Whereas if I'm doing less and less animation all the time because I don't live in LA anymore. And that's life. That's a part of the deal. It's not that I'm not doing any. It's just that I'm not doing as much as I might if I were in Los Angeles. So, and the reason that I still do animation is because of the relationships that I built when I was there. So they know me and they know my work and that can send them good quality sound files and that I'm consistent and I'm quick and all those kinds of things. But I do think that when you consider just how many people are doing voiceover and the fact that people are doing voiceover from everywhere, the vast majority of work, I think, and audition opportunities come from direct marketing and from being on rosters and pay to play. I mean, pay to play is a whole other thing, but I think it's more a combination of those things, and this idea that everybody's going to get an agent is not only is it not realistic, it's not really even beneficial, frankly, unless you are intent upon a career in animation and video games and stuff like that, in which case I hope the goal is to get yourself to Los Angeles, because that's where all those things happen. So
I want to go back to something you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. You said when you were talking about the animation that you said something like you're going to have to work towards this. I'm going to have to really work at this. Do you feel after 40 years there are some genres that you don't? It's all work, right? But that you don't have to work as hard at.
I think that I have really good commercial sensibilities and I have good promo sensibilities, but the thing you have to stay on top of is the culture. Like what kind of voice is being hired? What and are there things that I can do to shift my read, to make it still me, but that I become sensitive to the nuances of the differences between 2024 and 2010, because there's a difference between those reads, and so I think we have to be hyper vigilant about what is booking, and sort of parsing out the nuances of a particular read. So in that way, I think you always have to be attuned to the business, and people can say, I don't know why I'm booking. I used to book all these commercials all the time, and why don't I book them anymore? And a lot of times I want to say, it's because you got stuck in the decade of when you booked the most, and you didn't look beyond that to see what's different about the current decade than what was going on back when you were booking the most, right? And so I think if we want to stay current, we have to listen not just to the timbre of the voices, not just that, but how do they pronounce words? A lot of people drop their G's at the and there's a lot of upspeak, and there's kind of an I don't really care kind of thing going on. And when I was doing commercials in the 90s, it was like, let me convince you of this great new product that blah 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 blah, right? And now it's kind of like, yeah, so there's this product I use, and whatever. If you want to use it, go ahead. But I don't
like
really
it
care.
or don't like it. I don't really care. I like it.
I don't care. And so, but you kind of can't play at it, you have to embody it. And so accept your age group, right? I'm so happy. When I was in my 30s, I wanted to read health insurance and and financial planning things. And I wanted to be the expert, and I wanted to be the voice of wisdom. And it's like, you know what? I have arrived. And that's the kind of copy I read, and that's the kind of copy I book. And yes, there's less of it, but that's okay. It's just a part of the evolution of a career, So I am constantly, looking to see where I fit, right? And making sure that I'm reading the right copy. I get video game copy all the time for 20 and 25-year-old. It's like, I just delete it. I don't sound like a 20-year-old. I don't. And I'm not going to fake my way through that. I'm just not going to do it. So, I thank my agents. I know that I'm on particular lists for particular things. So God bless them that they're sending me all this stuff. But I have to curate my own inbox to make sure that I am reading the stuff that's right for me. And guess what happens when you do that? Your booking ratio goes up.
Hang around. We'll be back shortly.
Hello, this is Colette Redgrave, actor, voice artist and presenter from across the pond. And yes, we even get your podcast over here, you guys. You're listening to the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell.
As a voice actor, you want to focus on what's important, right? Like pulling off the perfect read. You don't want to stress about tech stuff. That's why Full Compass is in your corner. With 50 years experience in pro audio, Full Compass has everything we voice actors need. Mics, headphones, monitors, mixers, interfaces, DAWs, all the goodies. And their certified product experts help with everything they sell. Plus, you can get free same-day shipping, flexible financing, and a low price guarantee. See it all at fullcompass.com. Fullcompass.com. They know VO.
Making Waves returns.
I am so glad you brought up this age thing, because I was tenderly going to ask you some questions about. You and I actually have a very similar lifestyle change. We both moved to the country in Tennessee, and life just kind of changes. I'm looking around, going, "Wow, this is pretty cool." Just to appreciate nature now more than I did in the city. But how much? You kind of touched on as we approach our golden years, but how much are you thinking about your future in the business? And do you think you'll always work, or will you get to a point where you'll say, I just want to enjoy life? I've done my thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's a good question. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, would I retire? Would I do that? And I don't think I would ever sort of call my agents and say, you know what, take me off the roster. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Don't send me stuff. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think I feel like if there's somebody who wants to hire me, and the pay is right, I would always work. And I think it's really more a matter of how much will I pursue it. How much effort will I put in? If I have to choose between like, oh, I'm going to go, to the south of France for 3 weeks and I'm not going to take my gear, it's kind of those sorts of things where, I'm still kind of at the point where I go, well, yeah, I have my travel gear. I take it and I'll work. But I do imagine a time when I'll go, you know what? I'm not going to take my gear, because being here and being present in this beautiful space is really where I want my attention, And if somebody wants to hire me when I get back, great, happy to work. I can imagine saying no to work that I don't want to do, but I think I would always work if it was a project I liked, even for the silliest of reasons, and it fit my life and my schedule. I think I would always do that. And I sort of like that idea. I like the idea of kind of slowly, moving into a space where my time is more free to explore the things that I've wanted to explore. But, if I live long enough and somebody wants to hire a 90-year-old woman, for a thing, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do it, So, does that make sense? Like, I don't have a planned retirement date, but I do recognize that, like the women that I looked up to and admired when I was in my 20s and they were in their 30s, I would say, we're friends on Facebook, and they don't do voiceover anymore, and they are out traveling and exploring and writing books and, with their grandchildren, and they are loving life, and so and it points just to the natural evolution of careers. We come in, and I got hired for a job, which meant somebody lost that job and they moved on to another thing, right? It's like, that's the nature of it. And so I am really comfortable with the evolution of a career, from beginning to end. It's just a part of the cycle of it, so.
Well, you were smart in that you're also coaching, so you can do that forever, when you want to.
Yeah. When I want to.
Right.
That's the operative phrase.
Kay, what is your approach to voiceover coaching?
I coach commercial technique, and I just have started coaching video game acting for video games. And I actually have a workshop coming up at the end, not this coming weekend, the following weekend. And my approach is really kind of Meisner based. It's imagination. It's digging into the copy. In commercial work, all your clues and all your answers to what you do with the piece of copy are there. They are present there in the copy. And so it's copy analysis. It is understanding the differences between a radio read and a TV read, and then the further differences between local, regional, national, and brand image TV. So there are lots of subgenres in there. And so I am an encourager, I'm always after an improved read, not a perfect read. I don't think there's such a thing. I think we don't even realize that, how many times we might be in the top 5, which is an amazing spot to sit in, but we don't book. And so then we feel like we never got anywhere and we never did any good work, and that the only good work comes, the only proof of good work is the booking. And that's not true, So I try to give people perspective on the business, try to help understand casting. But I would say it's really honing in on the differences between various commercial reads. And then in video game work, it is really delving into the relationship and the use of imagination. So that's kind of where it lives.
I think I saw on your website that you said you want to work with people who want a career rather than quick to just make a demo and then,
yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure you run across that a lot because we see it a lot out there in people's heads. It's like, why am I not booking? I want to make a demo. I want to get out there. So,
yeah,
good for you.
It's really interesting. I also do career coaching, right? That's sort of the bulk, actually, of what I coach. And it's really interesting how often I get people who come to me and they have all these demos. They go, I made all these demos and I don't know what to do with them, and I'm not really working, and I don't, I get feedback and they go, yeah, your demos aren't that great, and oh my God, I just spent $8,000 on these 3 or 4 demos, and what do I do now? And so there's a lot of like, okay, I'm so sorry, there's never there's, I should say rarely, because there's always an exception, but rarely, is there a quick way in? And it isn't just a matter of, well, I took a class, I made some demos, I posted them on my website, and now why am I not working? Because, oh my goodness, it's just so much more complex than that. But if you don't know, if you're sort of at the mercy of demo makers to tell you who you are and what your brand is and what you do best, that's a process, and you don't, it's just, I end up, this is why I think I end up being more of a career coach and really trying to encourage people to take a step back, and to try to salvage what they can from their demos. But, my favorite quote is Arthur Ashe, the famed tennis player, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And so I think that serves people who are just beginning and don't have demos and think and are getting pressure to spend a few $1,000s on demos. It's like, whoa, you may not need to be there right now. That may not serve you right now. What can you do? What can you put on a website that will give an indication of what you can do? You may not need a full-blown demo. And if you're really after an agent, then you really need to think twice, about who you are and what your brand is. Because once you sort of step into that arena, an agent is absolutely going to say to you, okay, if they're interested, right? We need you to redo your demo. And then you've spent all this money, and now you have an agent telling you, yeah, we see talent there, but you have to redo it, And so everybody just needs to like slow down, and sort of see the whole thing as a process, that you're going to walk through, I haven't made a commercial demo in 30 years. Because I just collect the work that I do, and I update. I just go, oh, okay, that I like this spot. I'm going to put that spot on, or, and so, and I really think that it's would be smart for us to all get back to that to that kind of thing, to when you work, to collect your work and use the best of your work to round out and, constantly improve your demo, and I do that with all my demos. The one demo I did out of whole cloth was a brand new promo demo because all of the stuff on the promo demo that I had was dated. They were shows that were no longer on the air. It was like, Jane Pauley and Dr. Phil and, and Ricky Lake. It was like, okay, that was in the 90s. And so it wasn't an appropriate demo for the, 25 years later, So I made a demo out of whole cloth. And now that it's out there, and every time I work in promo, I get a copy of something, and I take one of the pieces out and I put the work that I've just done in, and let the evolution begin, right? And all of a sudden, in 5 years, I'll have a totally different demo than I had the 5 years previous, So I just think that's a kind of a good way to look at demos, and that we have to get out. And it's not to diss any demo makers. Like, I think demo makers are necessary, but we rely so much upon them to create our image, and who we are and what we do. And it's like, no, it has to come from inside of us. And then we need to go and direct the demo. Like, this is what I do. This is what I did with my promo demo. It's like, this is what I want. These are the channels that I'm interested in that are appropriate for me. These are the kinds of reads I can do, right? So in a sense, I'm the one who took the reins of my demo making and said, this is what we're going to do, because I know who I am, right? I know what I can do. And that takes years to know that. I didn't feel that way in 1989. I didn't. I learned as I went. But, you do get to a point where you go, okay, I think I know who I am, and I know what my brand is, and I know what my strengths are. And so I'm guiding this, I'm directing it. So that's super complicated, what we're told out in the voiceover world about what you need to get started.
Yeah.
It's not as clear cut, as you might think. There's not just one way to do it.
Yeah, there's not an instruction manual.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Tracy Thibodeau, and you've got the best VO podcast in all the land right here. The Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin and Bobby. Enjoy.
Kay, we could probably talk to you for hours. I know this.
I know. And I'm a little talkative, don't you think?
Oh, you're fine. This is what we do, right? But I did want to be respectful of your time, and I know we're going to do a cold read challenge in just a couple of seconds, but
okay.
I know at least Bobby and I wanted to work in this question, and I know Bobby really was curious about trust and be brave, and I know Bobby wanted to talk to you about that, but I wanted to hear about it also. Bobby, did you want to ask her about trust and be brave and all these things?
No, just what's the origin of trust and be brave? I'm part of your Facebook group, and sometimes I just like to jump in there because you're very zen. It kind of recenters me. But how did you come up with trust and be brave?
So I am a preacher's kid, and my dad. I grew up in American Baptist, which is a mainline Protestant denomination, and my dad was rather a what do I want to say? He was rather a rebel, in the church, and he actually eventually was thrown out of his denomination, but I grew up, so it's funny. I can kind of walk this line of going, I grew up a Baptist preacher's kid, and everybody gets a particular image of what that is, and then I want to go, and it's not really what you think, So, but I was kind of a rebellious teenager, when you hear that about PKs too, right? Like you're either the straight-laced kid or you're the one who went off the rails, and I was the one who went off the rails. So, but my dad, growing up, he had this phrase that he used with us, and he would say to us, trust God and sin bravely. And so if that gives you any inclination of like what? I mean, as a kid, I was like, what does that even mean? Like you're like telling me to go sin,
Bravely.
Bravely. And over the years, I came to understand that what he was saying is that, life is life is it's crazy out there, and you have to you're gonna, if you're gonna really live it, you're gonna have to make some choices, along the way. And sometimes you're not gonna know which choice to make, and it's gonna leave you paralyzed, with what to do and where to go. And so really that, for me, I began to understand that his was encouragement to say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're going to happen. And so you have to trust, in our case, in the language of our family, right? You need to trust that God has you. You're okay in the world, right? You're okay. And you have to go out and make decisions in life. And you're going to make good ones and you're going to make bad ones. But be bold in your decision making and know that you are held, And so I did the 2017 VO Atlanta keynote. Not 2017, 2018. 2019, actually.
Was it? Okay,
was.
19, yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to share that story with everybody because it really has had, made such an impact on me. And I have made lots of decisions and I have made lots of mistakes and I have survived stupid decisions, and big mistakes. I have made many of them, and they all, are a part of my story. They're all a part of what has brought me to this day, and for which I'm really grateful. And yet I didn't necessarily want the particular religious overtones, because I think that the idea behind that is universal. And so it still applies whether you're a believer or not, or if you're of a different religion or no religion, or you're an atheist or whatever. So I distilled it, for the purposes of that keynote to say, you got to trust. You have to trust that, that things are working in your favor, and you got to be brave. You have to go out and be brave, and you have to be brave in your auditions. You have to make not necessarily bold choices, but clear choices, right? And you're going to have to learn how to talk to people, and you're going to have to learn who you are, and be willing to state who you are, and draw your boundaries, and build relationships with people, and those are acts of bravery. They're acts of courage, And so I wanted to universalize the phrase that my father gave to me. That's really what it is. So it went from trust God and sin bravely to trust and be brave.
Speaking of being brave, Kevin, are you ready to lay down the challenge here for Kay?
I am ready.
You're going to discredit a near 40-year career. It's like
in one fell swoop.
In one fell swoop.
Kay, I have just sent over an email. Bobby and Lacey, I copied you both. And if you would just pull up the document, I sent it to your Bess Mac email. And if you would just pull it up, then you read from top to bottom, which includes the specs and direction, and then you just dive into the VO whenever you are ready.
Cold Read Challenge.
The Middle Ages were a real blast, said no one ever, especially if you found yourself on the inside of an Iron Maiden. This ancient torture tool looked like a hollow statue of a fair maiden with a spiked interior. The device worked by putting someone inside and shutting the doors. The points were arranged to pierce the heart and exit the mouth to create the illusion of a corpse bleeding from the mouth during public display. Because, ambience. The worst part? It could take days to die. They say it was used sparingly, but the threat was ever present. Like a spike-filled detention room. Behave or you'll get the maiden. The Iron Maiden. Because the Middle Ages didn't have enough irony.
Oh, that's it. Good stuff. Good
Where
stuff.
did this copy come from?
Oh, Lacey, our
Lacey.
producer and editor, who is also a great writer, came up with that concept.
Great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we like the idea of juxtapositioning your calm, very measured read with something horrible. So,
Yeah.
good stuff.
I'll have to go back and listen to see if I would I submit that take?
I think you might book
Good
that
job.
one. I
That
think you
was
might
fun.
book that. Hey, Bess, thank you so much for your time. If anybody wanted to reach out to you for coaching, booking, or otherwise, how could they reach you?
Well, you can find all of it at kbess.com, which is, there's a link at the top to go to my coaching page. And my coaching page is trustandbebrave.com. But so either of those, you can find me there. I'm and social media on Instagram and Facebook, I'm at kbess. So.
And they'll find your workshop. What is it? Trophy hunting? There as
Trophy
well?
hunting. Yes. There's
What's the
a
date
link.
of that again?
Oh gosh,
You can look it
I would
up.
have it right on the 9th and 10th. It's a 2-day workshop.
Okay, November 9th and 10th.
of
Perfect.
November. Yeah. And so there's a link at the top of my Trust and Be Brave page, and you can get to the Trust and Be Brave page either trustandbebrave.com or just kbess.com, and then you can link to it from there. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thanks so much, Kay, for joining us on the Making Waves VO podcast, and much continued success going forward.
Thank you so much. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Kay.
it. Thank you.
What a treasure trove of information.
What a career. I mean, wow. That's awesome.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I've had dinner with Kay and, we've chatted and these kinds of things, but it was really nice getting to know her over those nearly hour-long podcasts.
And I love that she is a preacher's kid.
I didn't know that, but it all makes sense now. She is, you said it a minute ago, she's such a Zen kind of person. She's all about kindness and being a good person on this earth. I love that.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Bobby, another successful Making Waves VO podcast, and we're going to have another exciting episode coming up next week. What is it? I don't even know yet. We don't even know yet. We'll figure it out, though, right?
Figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. The Making Waves VO podcast presented by Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO.
See you on the flip side, Bobby.
Bye-bye.
The Making Waves VO podcast is produced by K2 Media Productions with hosts Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. Sound design and editing by Jason Traver. Production assistance by Lacey Deline. Publicity and social media by Shannon Scott and Silas Phillips. Be sure to subscribe to the Making Waves VO podcast on your favorite platform. For all episodes, merchandise, gear, and more, visit makingwavesvo.com. Until next time, I'm AJ McKay. Keep making waves.